You call yourself smart, yet you miss everything. You measure minds loudly, but ignore hearts quietly. You chase clever titles, while truth waits silently. I watched you thinking. You knew the price, but you never noticed. The cost was love. You speak in numbers, I speak in scars. You flex your logic, I carry the weight. You mock soft people, calling them foolish dreamers, but dreams built futures your facts never touched. I stayed quiet, watching your confidence perform daily. You loved winning arguments more than understanding souls. You called me emotional, like it was weakness, but emotion saved me. When logic abandoned you, I saw patterns forming. You missed the meaning. I heard pauses speaking. You heard only noise. You think intelligence shines by proving others wrong. I learned wisdom grows by holding others close. You read endless books, yet skipped human chapters. You solved complex equations, but failed simple empathy. You laughed at feelings, calling them distractions. I used feelings carefully as guiding lights. You say you're logical, yet fear honest mirrors, because truth requires courage, not clever explanations. I waited for moments when masks would slip, when brilliance would fade, and humanity would appear, but you stayed armored behind sarcasm and pride. You call that strength, I call that hiding. You criticized my silence, mistaking it for ignorance, but silence was patience, watching who you are. You thought fast replies meant superior thinking. I chose slow understanding over flashy dominance. You confuse confidence loudly with quiet self-assurance. One performs constantly, the other rests peacefully. You chase being right, I chase being real. You worship mental speed, I value emotional depth. You judge tears harshly, I respect their honesty. You think love is weakness because you never felt safe enough to fall without needing control. You build walls of intellect, calling them protection, but walls block warmth along with imagined threats. I tried explaining gently, but you debated feelings as if hearts require permission from your approval committee. You call yourself smart, yet ignore simple truths, like kindness being strength and listening being power. You interrupt to dominate, I pause to understand. You argue to win, I speak to connect. You chase validation publicly, I seek peace privately. You fear being ordinary, I fear being unkind. You collect applause moments, I collect meaningful memories. You perform intelligence theatrically, I practice awareness quietly. You say emotions cloud judgment, I say ego blinds vision. You confuse control with clarity and volume with confidence. I watched you dismiss people who didn't sound impressive, not realizing diamonds whisper while stones make noise. You think love is logical, checklist-based and neat. I learned love is messy and beautifully inconvenient. You avoid vulnerability strategically, calling it self-respect, but vulnerability is courage. Your strategy is fear. You think caring deeply makes people manipulable. I think caring deeply makes life meaningful. You pride yourself detached above human complications, but detachment isn't evolution. It's emotional starvation. You call feelings inefficient. I call them essential data. Without them, intelligence is just empty calculation. You admire your sharp tongue, cutting people cleverly, but sharp tongues cut trust, leaving isolation behind. You joke about empathy as if it's weakness, yet empathy builds bridges. Your jokes burn them. You call yourself rational, but react defensively always. Rational minds stay curious. Defensive minds protect lies. You think you see patterns, but ignore repeated loneliness. Maybe intelligence without compassion creates impressive emptiness. You diagnose others easily, avoiding self-examination completely. True intelligence questions itself before judging the world. You demand respect loudly. I earn it quietly. You seek admiration constantly. I value genuine connection. You think being soft means being easily broken, but softness absorbs impact. Without losing shape, you fear emotional depth because it demands honesty, and honesty threatens egos. Built on superiority myths, you call yourself smart, yet miss the point. Life isn't a debate, it's a shared experience. You optimize everything measurable, ignoring what truly matters. Love doesn't need efficiency, it needs presence. You think understanding people means labeling their behavior. I think understanding people means honoring their pain. You analyze love clinically, like a broken machine. I experience love fully, like breathing air. You say feelings mislead, but instincts save lives. Your logic freezes moments where hearts should move. You call yourself smart, yet overlook the obvious. Smartness impresses crowds. Wisdom transforms relationships. You chase being admired. I choose being trusted. You think intelligence separates. I know love connects. You believe knowing everything means needing nobody. I learned needing people is being human. You outthink conversations. I outfeel moments. You dominate discussions. I hold. You stayed so confident. After every quiet ending, calling loneliness independence and silence personal choice. You never noticed patterns of people slowly leaving, not because they're weak, but because they felt unseen. You blame their sensitivity, never questioning your distance. It was always their flaw, never your coldness. You intellectualized every goodbye, so feelings wouldn't touch. You turned loss into theory to avoid grief entirely. I watched you rationalize pain like a math problem, solvable if detached, meaningless if felt. You told yourself stories about being misunderstood genius, but truth whispered softly. You misunderstood people. You mistook emotional boundaries for unnecessary drama, not realizing boundaries exist. When respect is missing, you said emotions complicate life, but life is emotional. Remove feelings completely, and you remove meaning. You became expert observer of everyone else's flaws, but beginner student of your own heart. You corrected tones constantly, while ignoring broken spirits. You focused on delivery, not the wound beneath. You prided emotional independence, but independence became isolation. Self-reliance turned avoidance. Strength disguised fear. You feared needing anyone, because need requires trust, and trust demands surrender. You hate surrender deeply. You call it weakness, because control feels safer than mutual vulnerability. You curated intelligence carefully to appear always superior. But superiority builds distance, not connection or warmth. You noticed people admired you, yet never stayed long. Admiration fades quickly. Without emotional safety, you don't lack intelligence. You lack emotional courage, the bravery to feel without hiding behind logic. You avoided mirrors intentionally because mirrors ask questions. Questions threaten narratives built on perfection myths. You kept conversations shallow, where intellect can perform, but depth exposes cracks. You worked hard hiding. You label emotional needs as dependency and insecurity, but humans are wired to need connection. Denying need doesn't remove it. It buries it deeper until it leaks sideways through anger or emptiness. You think detachment protects, but detachment numbs joy. You avoided pain successfully, but avoided happiness too. You believe people drain you, but vulnerability energizes connection. Walls don't preserve energy, they suffocate growth. You talk about self-mastery, yet emotions master you, because what's suppressed controls from shadows. You feared being seen fully, because flaws feel unacceptable, so you chose admiration over authentic acceptance. You confused attention with love and validation with intimacy, but intimacy requires presence, not performance or polish. You say people disappoint, but you never show up. Showing up emotionally, not physically or intellectually. You offered solutions always. When someone needed listening, you fixed problems loudly, ignoring the human crying. You think empathy is instinct, but empathy is practice. Practice requires humility, and humility scares egos. You built identity on being right, so being right threatens everything. You'd rather lose people than lose superiority. You analyze heartbreak from distance, calling it unnecessary suffering. But avoiding suffering avoids transformation entirely. Pain teaches depth. If you let it, avoidance teaches numbness, which feels safe temporarily. You said love should be rational, but love isn't efficient. It's sacrificial, inconvenient, brave, and deeply human. You think commitment traps people because you equate freedom with emotional detachment, not mutual choice. True freedom is choosing to stay open anyway, despite risk and fear. Despite past wounds, you carry wounds silently, pretending they don't exist. But wounds ignored become weapons later. You sharpen sarcasm unknowingly to protect old scars, cutting people before they touch sensitive places. You call yourself observant, yet miss your patterns. Repeating cycles of distance, then blaming circumstances. You always exit first, so rejection can't hurt. Leaving becomes control. Control feels like safety. You say you value honesty, but avoid honest vulnerability, because honesty exposes need, and need feels dangerous. You judge emotional people harshly because they remind you of parts you buried to survive earlier pain. Your intelligence saved you once from chaotic environments, but now it imprisons you, keeping growth outside. You outgrew survival strategies, but still cling tightly. What protected you then limits you now. You don't trust softness, because softness once hurt, so you armored intellect and called it evolution. But evolution includes feeling, not erasing it entirely. You confuse calmness with numbness and peace with disconnection. True peace allows feeling without being consumed. You want deep connection secretly, but fear its power. Connection dissolves masks, and you love masks. They keep you admired without being known, but being known heals. More than being admired, you claim independence proudly,